I don't know how my life would have turned out if I hadn't agreed to an internship in Yaroslavl. I might not have found out about my hidden interests and gotten to know Anna Vladimirovna better. I think this life story is worthwhile. To make myself known, the chief had already persuaded me to take the position of head of the advertising department in one of the branches of our company. The problem was that I did not want to move from Moscow to Yaroslavl. Of course, on weekends I could go home to friends and relatives, but the very fact of being in another city, where you have to get used to everything, somehow stopped me. I had to get used to everything, but the very fact of being in another city, where you have to get used to everything, somehow stopped me. Another unpleasant nuance was the fact that corporate housing was not provided at such a position, which meant that I had to look for an apartment or live in a hotel. In general, there were many pros and cons, which I promised to weigh before refusing or giving my consent. In the evening, in a conversation with my mother, I shared the news and unexpectedly heard her approval. Ilyich, go. But how much you will sit here in the general director's. Yaroslavl is a good city, and do not worry about housing. I have a cousin lives there. My cousin lives there. She has a spacious 2-room apartment. She's been asking me to visit for a long time. Take advantage of the offer in an hour. She's already spoken to my aunt and she's willingly agreed to rent me a room for a year. The last time I saw my mother's sister was when I was about 15, a brief encounter. The only thing I remembered was her ability to dress stylishly. A blue suit with cropped pants, a white t-shirt, and sneakers completed a look that, oddly enough, seemed inappropriate for her age. She looked much younger than my peers, who preferred the same style, but pinched a man, exclaimed she, hugging me. Her fashionable haircut was complemented by a trail of oriental fragrance. As she walked ahead of me to the car, I involuntarily watched her graceful gait and beautiful hips. Seemed, after the recent divorce from her husband, she did not suffer in the least. We sat in her compact Beetle and drove around the city. She told me something about Yaroslavl. Smiling sweetly the whole way. And I was mesmerized by her every gesture. And look at her apartment was cozy and spacious. Anna Vladimirovna showed me the room and offered to take a shower from the road while I came to myself under the cool jets of water. I kept wanting to look at her again and again. Such I have never experienced. All my novels began the same way. I met some beauty, couple of times went on a date and went to bed, and as soon as she began to blow my mind I interrupted close relations with them. Were like imitation languid-sized grace cat, but actually mechanical. I wanted something real to sink into and remember for a long time how good it was. I'd been living with my aunt for a month and commuting to work in the car the company had given me. She owned a chain of beauty salons and was also constantly busy. One evening I pulled up to the house and noticed the car was already parked in the parking lot. So she was inside. I wanted to approach her, as I suddenly saw in the side mirror a male reflection. Anna Vladimirovna was not alone. I approached her and kissed her. She wrapped her arms around his neck. I wanted to throw this impertinent out of the car. His hands went under her jacket, exploring the impressive size. She threw her head back, closing her eyes, letting him follow her. Everything inside me pulsed. I felt in my gut that I wanted to be in his place. Big Jeep, faithfully shown headlights did not let me finish what I started. I hurried into the house pretending to be a chalk card to my aunt. After a few minutes she also entered the apartment. Alyosha, are you home already? Have you been home long? She asked, taking off her sandals. No, about 20 minutes ago, I lied. I poured myself some coffee. Maybe something stronger. I was in such a good mood today, would you mind sharing it with me? I asked through clenched teeth, almost giving myself away. I myself perfectly well able to enjoy life, as if justifying. She pulled out of the closet bottle. After a couple of shots Anna Vladimirovna turned on the vinyl player and began to dance. If it were my mother, I would have quickly retreated to my room, but the current. I was happy to pair with her, not missing the opportunity to put my arms around her waist. My hands slid down her back, but it was as if she didn't notice it, listening to the words of the song and singing along from the warmth of her body. I felt hot and pulled her closer, and she seemed to sense how I felt. But instead of pulling away, Anna pressed herself even tighter against me as she continued to dance. When the music ended, she ran her hand over my cheek and walked away, leaving me burning. What could I expect if it was my aunt? At the beginning of autumn in our company there was going to be a corporate party, gathered a lot of couples, but, of course, I had to go alone. I had never seen this type together with Anna, which I was glad. Over dinner I said so to Anna. She let me call myself after a while about the event, and she exclaimed, Ilyich, I can go with you. I have not rested anywhere for so long. If we have corporate parties, we should organize them ourselves. Not knowing how it would look like from the outside, my aunt interrupted my thoughts. Don't worry, they won't think anything bad about us. I'll stay away from you if you want. I'm not worried. I'll explain that I decided to thank you for your hospitality. What's our code of conduct? She asked. We booked a restaurant with an outdoor terrace. It was still warm enough to go outside occasionally. I wore a black suit with no tie and leather boots. We arranged for my aunt to get there herself. The young beauty turned around to study her outfit. The long tight strapless dress revealed narrow shoulders and protruding keys, for she boasted velvet skin. The graceful triangular slit in the front exposed her cleavage to the maximum. I don't understand. What a wonderful auntie. You patted me on the shoulder. A colleague is cooler than our secretary. She must be as hot on the inside as she is on the outside. I got angry and could hardly resist hitting him, but in the meantime my aunt was already chatting sweetly with some musician. I approached her to ask her how I was doing. I was fine. I was feeling relaxed. Take it easy and relax. She smiled. She sipped from the flute, but I didn't feel like partying all night. Some guy I didn't know threw his jacket over her and whispered something in her ear. I realized I was losing my temper, said goodbye, and went home. At home, I opened the bottle, sat on the couch and drank straight from the throat. The unbearable feelings of anger and desire were raging inside me. An hour later, when I heard the sound of the key turning in the keyhole. Judging by the voices, Anna wasn't alone. They had entered the room with a man, and the door had closed. I realized I couldn't take it anymore, yanked the door open and saw him pulling down her dress. Grabbing the man by the scruff of the neck, I threw him out into the hallway. He tried to reach out, but I was already locked in with her boyfriend. I moved closer to her, wanting to tell her what I thought, but she put her hand over my mouth and whispered. At that moment she let go of my other hand and the dress slid off her to the floor. For a moment I was speechless, but my animal instinct told me how to act. I showed up for work the next day. I was embarrassed, but it was such a small thing compared to the changes that were happening in my life.